Tim and I are super passionate about doing trainings like this because we just want to connect with you wherever you're at, give you some information, allow you some time to chew over it, and be able to really make progress. So, in the chat, before we dive into our slides, go ahead and share with us. Do you already have your 501c3 established? Do you have? Give us a yes if you have your 501c3 established. Give us a no if you are just in the like, hey, I don't even know what I don't know. I'm just here to hear.
Good.
So, okay, it's
So
pending.
like it's
Yes.
pending.
I
Okay.
got some yeses. I got a couple no's. Applying this
Another
year, I
pending.
hope.
Good.
Yes. Okay.
Good.
Application. Okay, great. So we got a good mix of those who have already established and those who are just getting started. So
Yeah.
this is our
That's good.
topic for today. So if you thought we were talking about something else, this is your chance to exit. So, but we're going to talk about why 2025 is the year to start your nonprofit and why it's not. This is Tim Needham with me. I'm Mary Valloni.
Hi.
We'll share a little bit more. This is what we're going to be talking about during our time today. Okay, we're going to talk about, understanding the unique nonprofit opportunities and challenges in 2025. It's really important for Tim and I to be giving you updated, current, relevant information, not something that was. I like using the 1900s, it's like, because there's 1990s, 1980s, there's a lot of information that's out there that might have been relevant back in the day, but let's talk about 2025, 24, 23, these most recent years that we have access to information. We're going to give you
Mary,
some.
I gotta say, I
Yeah.
gotta stop you real quick and tell you,
Yeah.
I was teaching a session recently to a bunch of graduate students at a seminary, and they were talking about the organization that we run and how we launch nonprofits and stuff like that. And it dawned on me halfway through the room, like I was using all these references that I grew up with. And at one point, I said, my kids always joke with me that like I'm from the 1900s, and I expected that they would just give a big laugh, like they relate to it, and it was just silence. And so I asked them, I said, "Are any of you guys born in the 1900s?" And not a single hand went up, and I was just like, "Oh boy, I have
Tim,
reached the threshold of old."
hey, and Tim, you and I used to be the young ones. No.
I know, I
It's
know.
all good. It's all good. We have to grow up and move into this new season, especially since we're parents. So good.
Exactly.
I have a feeling that we have a few in the room here today that are familiar. They came up in the same generation with us. So
I think we're in good company right now.
yeah, we are. We got some young ones too, though. So, but anyways, we're going to share a few practical strategies as you're starting and growing your nonprofit. You get ma'amed, Jen. I get that. And then we're going to help you just decide with confidence if now is the time to take the leap. Okay, so we hope to give you that general information. So, like we mentioned, I'm Mary Valloni. Tim Needham is here with me. Um,
Hi.
Tim runs an incredible organization called the Restoration House, St. Louis. Tim, tell us about your nonprofit and what gives you credibility to talk about how to start a nonprofit.
Yeah, well, we're a nonprofit here in St. Louis. We're a faith-based nonprofit that started in the idea form 10 years ago, and we officially launched 8 years ago. So we're an organization that works with youth and young adults between the ages of 18 and 26 who are homeless and at risk of homelessness. And what we do is we provide them the resources that they need to get to where they want to be from where they're at to where they want to be. And as far as, I guess, the credibility of our organization, like what have we done? In the last 10 years, we have served over 13,000 people in the St. Louis area, providing resources of all different types to help people get exactly where they want to be. So that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, so good. Yay. And Tim is actually a former fundraising client of mine. So about 10 years ago, when Tim was getting things rolling, we got connected to each other. And I was, of course, helping in the fundraising space. And my background with the American Cancer Society, Special Olympics, and the ALS Association, I was their development director, going from one to the next, and ultimately was on a mission to help other organizations, especially the startup organizations. So all the people that are here on this call here today, you guys are the guys that like I was dreaming about, that maybe one day God would give me the opportunity to work with you guys and help you on your fundraising efforts. And I just realized in this picture, Tim, that you are receiving a check from Brandon Bowes, who is a recent guest on our podcast. And I love that. I didn't even realize that. So shout out to Brandon. So
I will say too, that was a very generous check that they were giving in that moment too. So I was in a very good mood.
so good.
Yeah.
But you guys can also see that Tim is a really tall guy. So it's like it's hard to know. And same thing for me. It's like knowing, hey, oh, what do these people look like besides their headshot here? So
Brandon is normal size and I
yeah.
am ginormous.
You have served in the military for good reason.
Right.
They put you to good use.
That's right.
But also, the picture of me over here is just doing a training working with missionaries. This was a few years back, but recently, in the last really year and a half, Tim and I have partnered together to help start and grow, like help startup and growing nonprofits raise funds. So this was actually a workshop that Tim and I just did this last fall, and we got to bring some of our podcast guests together. So actually, the panelists here they have all started up their own nonprofits, all founders, and were guests on our podcast. And so it was really great. We got to bring our students together. So everyone here in the room are students of ours, and just a lot of fun. So
It's
all that
really
to be
good.
said is that we are in the weeds with you guys, and really knowing, like having our thumb on the pulse of the fundraising side of things, and also just on how hard it is or how easy it is to start a nonprofit today. So I'm curious, before I share these top 3 reasons of why not to start a nonprofit, I'm curious for you guys to share with us, what is your number one reason, or what has been the number one reason for you that you're like, I haven't started, or I'm in the process, or I've been delaying it, and give us the reason why. Just curious. Go ahead and use the chat, and be sure to click everyone if you haven't, so that we can all see it. Yeah, and Ed shared confidence.
Mm,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Ah, David felt the same way. No
Yeah.
confidence, limited
Yeah.
time,
That's good.
people. And Rachel, by the way, I hope you're feeling better. We've been praying for you. Lack of knowledge in legal and finance,
Mm.
and Ron just is like, I just never thought about it. Oh, that's good. You're in the beginning stages. Oh, hi, Sherry. Hi, friend.
Yeah.
Defining your vision and mission. And yeah, so really great reasons. Okay. Tim and I are going to give you the Google version. Okay. So just from doing research on this topic, specifically for right now, like what is the interwebs? What is what are the people out there, the bots, the AI, the whole crew? This is what they say the top 3 reasons are not to start a nonprofit in 2025. Number 1, too much competition. And this is really interesting because Tim and I just did a podcast episode with one of our friends, Eric Porter, and Eric was talking about how this was the biggest mistake he actually made, because
Yeah.
he thought that all of the other nonprofits were competition. But this is actually one of the top reasons why people do feel like, well, why do I need to start a nonprofit when there's so many nonprofits out there? And yeah, don't have that problem. But here's really like just the stats, just so you have the information to know that there are 1.4 million nonprofits, 501c3s that are out there right
Yeah.
now in the United States alone. For all those who are international and might be starting up nonprofits in those locations, these are the stats for right now in the US. About 1.3 million of those are 501c3s, not the private foundations. By the way, private foundations are the ones that are like basically funding other nonprofits. So it's a little bit
Yeah.
slightly different, but on the charitable front. And Tim, is there something that stands out to you as far as like on this graph on the right side of,
The one on the right.
yeah, just as far as like how much money all these organizations are raising?
Yeah. They don't have the money. They don't have the funds. It's a
Yeah.
big red flag, like ding, ding, ding. which tells me that they just don't. There's probably somebody like me who 10 years ago I didn't know what I was doing, and so you have this heart, you have this thing on your heart, and you really want to go at it, but you just don't know where to begin. You don't know where to start. And so I would be willing to bet that almost all of those, stayed dead in the water because they just don't know where to start.
Yeah. And you can see here at the, top 55%, no expenses reported, 20% up to $100,000. So right, 75% of all nonprofits aren't even at the six-figure mark. That's like not
Yeah.
even, they're not compensating their staff. So for those
Yeah.
of you who want to work in your nonprofit, I just want you to see that there really aren't that many nonprofits that are actually doing well and are taking it seriously and doing this as a full-time job and profession.
That's
So
right.
if you're even thinking about the competition side, I just want to kind of debunk that right away by saying that it's like there's a lot of people that start, there's not a lot of people that continue.
Yeah.
And they do not grow from that startup phase. So, and Jeremy, thank you for posting here that you said you never thought of others as competition. Thank you so much for that because I think it's more kind of in those and I don't want to use so much like secular and religious, but really I think on the religious side, there's a lot of organizations, churches and 501c3 religious organizations who really see that partnership of, hey, we want more people to come join us because that means that more people are getting helped. I will say on the secular front, the side that I worked on for many, many years, I worked for the American Cancer Society and my number one competitor was the breast cancer organization
Yeah.
competitor. And
Yeah.
I'd say this, that I didn't feel like they were my competitor, but they definitely thought I was theirs because they thought I was taking all their money. So
Yeah.
that's just
And
something to think about.
let me speak to that too. So there is a sense of like competition for sure, and I totally get that. I've been there, and if I'm not careful, I catch myself comparing myself to other organizations as well. So it's a totally relevant and normal thing to feel. But when you intentionally shift gears on it and you come at it from a different angle, what you realize is like if you do it right, especially when you're early on, if you do it right and you look at them as an opportunity to like help launch and grow your organization, um you know other organizations that do a similar work really can help elevate you. And where in our line of work we deal with a lot of organizations who go after state and federal funding, so they're similar organizations as us, but they have different routes to go after funding. They're very state and federal grant heavy, so they have a lot of stipulations to the work that they do. Well, we don't, because we run the organization, and everybody listening, you guys are going to run your organization. So the stipulations aren't on your shoulders. You get to determine how you run the organization. So when they have because when you go after those grants, a lot of times you can't have two different organizations claiming the same thing. Uh, well, we're happy to let them claim whatever they want on the state and the federal grant side because we're not doing exactly what they're doing. So it really allows us to partner up with organizations that we would not normally be able to because we're going after different funding sources. So every nonprofit out there it's an opportunity. It is an opportunity to connect on the funding side, on the mission side. So yeah, I totally get what you guys are saying. I would encourage you guys to just shift the mindset a little bit because they really are opportunities.
Yeah, so good. All right. And then number two, sustainability is difficult. I would say that majority of organizations that have been established, that have been around, whatever, they would say, it's just, you can get those initial funds, but then sometimes people find that the sustainability is difficult over time. And they just say it's long-term funding is the challenge.
Yeah.
And then the third reason is that they feel like accountability is overwhelming.
Hmm.
So to not start in 2025, it's like, okay, I'm sorry, but accountability, you're going to be held accountable on a lot of different fronts. But I think
Right.
sometimes people get overwhelmed by the, having to be held accountable by donors or by the IRS.
Mhm.
So anyways, these are the few things that the interwebs will say are the reasons not to start this year,
That's
which
right.
obviously are silly, right? These are just, they're part of the job and all that. But these are the two primary reasons that Tim and I, this is why we think that reasons why you should not start your nonprofit in 2025. Okay. Tim, go ahead and share these two here.
Okay. Um, yeah, you're not ready. Yeah, we talked about this a lot, and this is definitely the one that like kind of like echoes pretty loud. Um, for me, and when when we got this going 10 years ago, I had that mindset in my head the whole time for like, actually for about 2 years before we launched it. It was like, I can't do this. I have no idea, but it's also not the right timing. Um, we're not financially secure enough. I don't know where to begin. I haven't built up enough experience and I don't have a good enough base of knowledge. I don't understand how to fundraise. I've never built a team from the ground up. And the reality is what I've realized in this and in, many aspects of life is you're never gonna be ready. So we hear all the time people when it's talk about things like marriage or children, if somebody's been together in a relationship for a long time, why aren't you married? They say, well, we're just not ready for marriage yet. Or when are thinking about kids, like, well, we want to be a little bit more financially secure. We want to have a house, or I want to finish school or whatnot, or I want to have a better paying job. So we say we're not ready yet. But when those things happen, when you have children, when you get married, you realize, you know what? I never really was ever ready for these challenges, and they're big challenges. Uh, the reality is you're just never going to be ready. So the better question to be thinking about is there a genuine need for the vision that you have, and do you have a heart to fill it?
Yeah. And so if the number one here not to start it is just you aren't ready, like in your spirit, in your gut, and like you're just like, I need more information, I need whatever, and you just feel like you're not ready. The other one here is that you actually don't need to start a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And this is where it's a lot of work to start a nonprofit. So you really do want to ask yourself in 2025, like, is starting a new nonprofit actually necessary?
Yeah.
And we just want to encourage you to make sure that you have clarity on your vision and your mission. Make sure that there isn't someone else that isn't already doing it, that you could just jump on board with what they're doing, volunteer, serve in leadership, maybe go
Yeah.
on staff with them. How
Yeah.
many, I mean, Tim, served with, other organizations before you started your own,
That's right.
and for good reason.
Right. Yeah, I kind of we launched Restoration House, and when you really look at like the fact that we're a faith-based social service agency, it's the confidence that I had in it was I was a youth pastor before, so I understand that faith-based side, and I worked in social work after that, so I knew how to bring those two worlds together. But had I not spent the time to get to understand, how those two can work hand in hand, I may not have been able to do what I've done. So sometimes you do need to like, for lack of a better term, you need to go to school, like when whatever you're wanting to do. So get some time, like what you said, Mary, volunteering, joining a team. Maybe you go like full time in a program for a while just to learn the nuts and bolts of what's going on. Particularly like when you do that, though, you can learn what they're doing well, but you can also learn the gaps. So like, okay, what are they not doing that can be addressed, pretty easily, and how could I potentially do that?
Mhm. And that's really how you figured out how to like where your niche
That's
was
right.
because you saw that there was a gap in those 18 to 26-year-olds.
That's exactly
So,
right.
and it allowed you to really hone in on your vision and mission, and then back to one when you weren't
Yeah.
ready, you were
Yeah.
then ready. It pushed
Yeah.
you forward to that point. So anyways, I don't know if those resonate with you guys just as far as like where you've been, but we're here to talk about 2025 and like why this is the best year. Because I have a feeling that most of you guys came here because you're like, I do want to start my nonprofit this year. And I do feel resolution that like this is something that I'm supposed to do. It's just whether or not is it going to happen this year? Is it going to happen next year? Is it in January? Is it
Yeah.
in July? Is it next, at the end of the year? So hopefully this will give you some good ideas about what's actually going on in the world to help you through that. So Tim, we both are huge advocates of just starting when it's
Just do it.
when even when it's ugly, right? Like how many times have you guys started something where you're like, this is not pretty? PS, I just started a YouTube channel. Just like with my business partner, Mike Kim on the fully funded stuff. And I mean, I'm like all nervous and I've been doing video, I've been doing audio for so long. And it's like, oh my gosh, it makes me nervous. And I was like, oh wait, I'm starting something new. And anytime you do something like that, it just feels awkward. And
Yeah,
so you stepping out into this is going to feel a little bit awkward because you've never done it before, or you have
that's
done
right.
it under somebody else's umbrella and now it's yours. And it's a little bit different,
Yeah.
but we just believe
We,
there's no better time to start something new than now.
when Mary and I were talking to Eric Porter, who we mentioned recently, we were talking about how I mentioned to him that I get asked, quite often, like, why did you start Restoration House personally? The organization, people understand what we do and why, but Tim Needham, why did you start this, Tim Needham? And my answer is the same thing every time. And that is, if not me, then who?
Mhm.
If not me, then who? So you should ask yourself that question, like, why are you wanting to start this? What's the problem that you're trying to address? Who are you trying to serve? Who are you trying to service? And ask yourself this question: if not you, who's going to do it? And maybe try to think through that, like, who actually are the people who would try to do it? And if you can't think of anybody, then that's a red flag to say, like, well, duck on it, that should be you, because
Mhm.
there is nobody else who's going to do it to address this problem. So if not you, then who?
Yeah.
There's no better time than now.
Yeah, and I just like this, Chinese proverb that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. I mean, it just goes to show that it's like, of course, it's always better if it was done already and it's already done. But one thing that I will caution you guys with, and it's just something to think about, is that you probably already have like kind of a download of like the vision of your organization, and it just feels very overwhelming. Like, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do this, and you wish, oh, I wish I would have started that last year. I wish I would have done it already. And so I just want to encourage you through this, because that is very natural and very normal for the kind of leaders that you guys are, that you're going to already start to have this great vision. That's why you're leading it.
Yeah.
That's the reason why you're the one that needs to start it, is because you've got this big vision for the future. So absolutely hone that, but don't feel like you're behind, because
Yeah.
you're absolutely, this is the right season, this is the right time, and you just need to start taking steps forward.
And the fact that you're on this webinar right now is an indicator that, like, you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. The second reason why this is the right time is this right here. We talked about the reason not to is sustainability of income. And I'm telling you, there is so much money right now that's being transferred from one generation to the next. I have a couple stats for you guys that I just thought were like mind blowing to me. But older generations are expected to transfer $84 trillion to younger generations between now and 2045. $84 trillion is going to be passed through to a generation that really loves charity. Like, you guys know, like these younger generations are like, they are very philanthropic and they want their work to be meaningful. That's why so many people are doing, the kind of work that they're doing. So it's really encouraging to know that the money is going to be transferred, and it'll hopefully land in the hands of people who really do want to make a difference in the world and are right now looking for their causes to get plugged into.
Yeah.
So, and then this one was interesting to me, that 72.6 trillion will be in assets. So that's like buildings and, all that, houses and other things like that. They're going to transfer that to their heirs. And already they're saying that $11.9 trillion of that is going to be donated to charity.
Wow.
So there's a
I
lot of
can't even,
money.
like, fathom those kind of numbers. Those numbers are so big that I can't even compute them.
Yeah. But I mean, there is no scarcity. That's really just what I want to say, is that there's no reason for you to say, oh, there's not enough money to run our organization. I'm telling you, there's so much money. There's a ridiculous amount of money, and whatever you need, that is just such a fraction of what's out there. And you don't need everybody to love you. You don't need every dollar in your bank account. You just need what it takes for you to run your organization. I already
Yeah.
told you 75% of nonprofit organizations are functioning on less than $100,000.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why a lot of that money goes to larger organizations, and that's because they know how to handle it.
Yeah. By the way, Mayor, I saw in the comment section, Jeremy mentioned about like what I was talking about, like with other organizations and competition and stuff. So speaking to all the money that is out there, when you look at other organizations, not as competition, but as opportunities to be a blessing and to collaborate with them, what you'll find over time is as you've cultivated those relationships, money starts coming your way from them. It's the craziest thing. So I had another organization here in town. Another nonprofit wrote me a check last week for our work. And then we're partnering with another organization right now where they're going to be giving us $30,000 to do similar work and what they're doing. So those collaborations really do, like, over time. And when you don't look at people as competition, you look at them as collaborations. Money comes in there as well.
Yeah. You'll learn if you guys know Tim, he's collaboration king. I'm just going to quote that for you. It's like all about partnerships, all about collaborations. It's like we're better together,
Yeah.
hands down, which is so good.
Right.
All right. The third reason why this is a great year is to do this is because like we have free access to information. Now, do we have a lot of it? We way too much, probably. We've gone the other route. But I mean, when I was doing my fundraising, like back in, the early 2000s, like when I was like really launching into my fundraising, like work, we had to pay for advertising. I mean, we had $250,000 donated in advertising to us just so that we could get our message out. And today there's such an increased opportunity in raising awareness through social media, through the resources that are already available. But I just want to highlight the fact that I have clients that I've worked with that are doing incredible work in Ukraine, right? How would 10, 20, 30 years ago, how would we have even had the awareness to know that there was a need in Ukraine?
Yeah.
Or, all the things that are happening in the US, any issues, hot button topics. I have a client that's, pregnancy care center, right? And they have seen an influx of donations, not because they did anything. It's because of just the general information that's being put out into out on the news or out on social media. And so anyways, I just want you to see that, like, yeah, increased awareness in 2025, like people might actually know more about your topic than you think they know.
Yeah. That's
So
right.
yeah, just a growing audience that are ready to support nonprofits who are addressing global challenges. So for those of you who are working internationally, before it'd be like, oh, nobody really knows outside of their community. We
Yeah.
now know so much more beyond our walls.
Yeah, not only that, so like people who are working internationally and let's say like came to like the US, like you used to have to spend so much time itinerating back into like other like parts of the world. Whereas now, like you can, connect with somebody like instantly, like we have people on this call right now, like
Yeah.
coming from all over the world. So
Yeah.
there's never been a better time to take advantage of technology and how that can increase the awareness of what is going on, the problem that you're trying to address, but your organization as well. Never been a
Yeah.
better time.
Absolutely. And then number 4, just the advancement in tech. Tim, I am
Yeah.
like the amount of technology just that has changed in the last,
3
decade.
years.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. It's just, well, obviously now with AI and having
Yeah.
access to that, but the software technology that's available to you guys, and also that there are so many free resources for
Yeah.
nonprofits. I mean, you don't you can do it at a fraction of the cost because of all of this new technology that has become available. So I just highlighted a few, like, obviously AI, video. I mean, look at us. Look at how
Yeah.
we're all on this video. I think that this, cost us $50 or something. Our assistant would know better. But I mean, like, for us to actually have this opportunity for us to be all together in one place, this would
Yeah.
have cost us so much more just a decade ago in order to make this happen. Social
Yeah.
media, software, yep, cheaper than ever.
I was using like I was working on logistics and strategy for our organization earlier this morning, and so I went on to Chat GPT and I was just thinking about how to advance, create more practical steps, step by step instructions on how to get somebody who's interested in learning about an organization to active within the organization. And I typed in, how do I create a step-by-step journey to get people interested in our nonprofit to be becoming involved in both serving and giving financial donations. And what came out of that was like in 10 seconds, this like amazing step-by-step instructions. And I'm slow to the AI, bandwagon, but I'm slowly coming onto it, and I loved it. It's so great just to get a bird's eye view on how to create some new strategies and start to tweak it. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, and the nice thing about, what is out there, I know some of you guys are probably like, oh, I don't like, I feel like that's cheating or using AI is somehow wrong. But at the same time, I think that a lot of times people have a hard time getting started.
that's right.
So back again to where it's like, I don't know where to start. And so by using a prompt, to use a tool like AI, you can get something started to be like, I don't even know how to start this conversation. And most people are like, I want to do a social post on this. They want to post something on Facebook or on, Instagram or wherever. And they're just like, I don't even know how to begin.
Yeah.
And you can actually put it into AI and say, like, write a post about da da da. And then PS, please do not copy and paste what AI tells you to put on Facebook or social media, because it's like it's a robot. Okay. Like,
It's
and
generic.
yes,
Yeah.
and you want to make sure that your personality comes out in those communication tools. So even if your spelling isn't perfect, even if you're, all the punctuation, all that isn't perfect, it's you and it's human. And the person on the other side knows that it comes from you. But regardless, these tools, they're free, they're easy. And it's nice to know that you have those resources available to you.
Yeah.
So, and then the last one here, number 5, now more than ever. I mean, you guys know what we've been through in the last 5 years. I don't know
What's
about any of
that?
you. 2020. I don't know, Tim, I think you had a birthday that year. I think you were turning the big 40 that year.
I so COVID happened on the world shut down on March 16th. I turned 40 on March 17th. And like by that time the grocery stores were empty. So my wife, she said, Tim, I'm so sick because we're like locked in the house. She's like, well, is there anything I can do? We can't go anywhere. Do you want me to make you dinner? I said, all I want is a cheeseburger. And so she goes to the store to get meat and all the meat's gone,
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's like, did you almost feel like maybe I was only supposed to make it to 40? It was good.
I was like, everybody always told me 40 was terrible. Like, now I'm like, thanks, 40.
Yeah. Well, I followed you a couple months later, and on that trail as well. But anyways, we just want you to see though that like now more than ever, like we really see just a generation of philanthropy, like
Yeah.
just community, and you can see it in all aspects that people
Yeah.
are starting to push back against some of the social media stuff because they do want to be in community with each
Yeah.
other. And this,
Social problems are at like their peak. Like, and I can attest to that doing this work. I've never seen more people passionate about like social issues, and that's across the spectrum. I'm not talking about a political social issue. I'm talking about people. There has never been a greater influx in the desire for people to get involved with helping other people and other humans. It's a great time to spark a fire in people.
Mhm,
Yeah.
absolutely. And really ultimately it's just, yeah, post-pandemic, there's a renewed sense of community and a
Yeah.
desire for meaningful engagement. We just want to be around like-minded
People.
people and people, yeah, people, good people, honest people, like just
Yeah.
and when it comes to charitable giving, the reason why people do give and the reason why people volunteer is because they do want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And
Yeah.
so, and you are the gatekeeper to that life transformation for people. Like
Yeah.
not only on the receiving end, but also on the volunteerism side. Tim, like I can only imagine the life transformation that you've seen from the volunteers that
Sure.
you get to work with.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, when we take our, a volunteer down for the first time to go do like homeless outreach, what the beauty behind like what we do and the way that we set up our programs is they come down one time and they're just blown away. They're blown away at the need, and then they're blown away at like how they see that they can be a blessing. And so that's not unique to the type of organization that I'm running. That's like all around. So all the different types of nonprofits that are out there. If there's a legitimate problem and there's a problem that you're trying to solve, people are going to see that. So yeah.
So good. So when we share this, why 2025 is the best year to start your nonprofit, it really comes down to these 5 reasons. There's no better time than now. This transfer of wealth, when we were talking about sustainability and all that, and increased awareness for global issues, advancement in tech, and that people, really want to be a part of a cause. These are all like really, really great, reasons why people would want to start something in the new year. But I do find that even with all of this information, I actually kind of want to shout out one of our students who's here on today's call, Steve. He said he was a constant learner, but Steve said something on a call that we had recently with our students, and he actually mentioned that there was so much information that it felt like it was like information overload, that it's like everybody has ideas. There's so much available. And I just want to highlight to you that today in 2025, at your fingertips, you have the answer to any question you could possibly have about running and
That's right.
sustaining and building a nonprofit organization. So like if you're questioning like, oh, is it possible for me? Absolutely,
Yes,
because every single person who's done it before has done it from scratch. They never did it before. They had to figure it out as they
that's
went
right.
along. But I will say on that same note, when Steve was sharing that, he was like, I need to shut the noises down
Mhm.
because there is so much. And it's like, oh, I should be doing that. I should be doing that. And you always feel like you're behind. So
Yes.
what's really, really important, and some advice that Tim and I can give to you today, is to really be selective about the voices that you let into your organization. You
Hmm.
have to be selective. Protect this nonprofit like it is your child.
Yeah. Well, there's a temptation early on that when like you get started, you want to open up the floodgates and anybody and everybody who will give you time and says they want to get involved, that says they want to be a part of it, you're just so ready to receive anybody who will help with what you're doing. And what I see a lot is I see a lot of early on nonprofit leaders. They are quick to assign big titles and big roles within the organization because they just want to like expand really quick. And then when they move too hard too fast on that with people and they've just opened up the floodgates, they sometimes end up regretting, having assigned some of those roles too early to people, and then they have to backtrack on it. So take your time. Like I encourage people, like, just like what you're saying, Mary, take your time with it, and be patient with like who you allow to come in and have influence within the organization. Be slow and steady. It's that tortoise and the hare, slow and steady. But the whole point is like keep moving, just keep pushing, don't stop, keep moving. Doesn't matter how fast you're going, and you don't have to go super fast, but just keep moving. Just take another step and another step and another step, slowly and steadily.
Yeah, so good. So back to just the reason not to start this year, I just want to debunk a couple of these for you guys so that you can feel, I mean, I don't want to like give you more anxiety from today's conversation. I want you to be able to like feel like, wow, we can actually do this. So the first three: too much competition, sustainability is difficult, and accountability is overwhelming. I am so sorry, but if you run a business, you run a nonprofit, you
Yeah,
start anything, these 3 things it's work.
yeah,
We're not going to sugarcoat it. This is a profession. The
that's
nonprofit
right.
sector is not meant to be a hobby. And I think that a lot of people are like, "Oh, it'd be fun to go help some people." And that's great. Volunteer.
That's right. That's right.
Volunteer. If you want to do it as a hobby, volunteer. If you feel like you're
And that's
called to do
okay.
this,
That's okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Tim, you wouldn't have an organization if you didn't have volunteers.
I love volunteers. Not everybody has to start a nonprofit. Not everybody has to start an organization. That's okay. Come like, slip into like another organization that's doing great work. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's like this is where we just want to make sure that you know that these three things are
Yeah.
something that we can walk with you through. Like we can
And
help you through that.
no matter where you are, if you're staying on the business side or if you're in a nonprofit, you're going to deal with all three of those things. So you can't really escape it.
Sorry.
You're gonna have to deal with it no matter what.
We wish the IRS didn't have to track stuff and your donors didn't actually want to hear what was going on, but no, it's important because
Yeah.
they're invested. So
Yeah.
it's these last two, and this is really we want to talk to these two groups of people here. I assume that these are you guys. It's either I'm not ready or I'm ready.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm either I don't feel good, or it's like, yeah, I feel really good that I'm ready. If you are in that I'm not ready kind of boat where you're just like, I'm taking in information, I'm just thinking about this information, I just want to encourage you. We've been mentioning it through today's conversation that Tim and I do have a podcast. It's really important for us to bring voices to you guys that can allow you to get into the heads and hearts of people who've already done this so that
Yeah.
you can start to gain that confidence. Like you guys were saying at the beginning, I just don't have the confidence. The more that you listen to them, the more you'll be like, oh, shoot, they didn't have confidence either.
That's right.
So thanks, Erin, for posting that. So she posted a link for our podcast, but this is a free resource to you guys. Like we
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that we continue to provide that information so that you can feel confident when you do step out that you're like, I'm ready to do this. And I know that I've got others that have gone before me who've
Yeah.
walked through this.
I know that many of you are already listening to the podcast, but if you aren't, just don't, like what Mary said, the whole point of this podcast is to get you to see it can be done. And here's an example of somebody who did it. And so, we don't put, just anybody who like has started. We put people on there who have started it, grown it, launched it, and are, successful at what they're doing now. So, it's a great resource.
Yeah. And if it's okay with you guys, I just want to share a little bit about what Tim and I do and how we come alongside nonprofits. We do have an academy called Start and Grow Your Nonprofit Academy. Some of our students are actually in here on today's call. But Tim and I just feel like we both are really passionate about helping people not have to do the things that we did.
Yeah.
I mean, in fundraising, I can't tell you how many fundraisers I've done. I often say that I'm like, I have done every fundraiser under the sun. I've done selling candy bars to golf tournaments, walks, runs, events, galas, skeet shoots, the whole thing. It's like, and after a while, I'm just like, oh my gosh, fundraising just doesn't have to be this hard. And so
Yeah.
it really can be very sustainable. You can start to see those monthly recurring gifts that are coming in, those annual gifts that are coming in. But we do that through our academy. And it's really just an online coaching program to help you start and grow your nonprofit. And who this is for is really for, nonprofit entrepreneurs. I'm going to give Tim all the credit for this, for coining this term. If you guys ever type in entrepreneur, they're always going to tie it to a business. And Tim was like, nonprofit, all the people who start and grow a nonprofit are absolutely nonprofit entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
You can't do this business without being entrepreneurial. So each of
Right.
you are extremely entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And so for those of you who are like that, this is really the program for you guys to do that. So you want to be fully resourced for the work you've been called to do. You're willing to develop your skills as a communicator, fundraiser, and leader. You recognize times are changing and you want experienced coaches to guide you through the process. And it's time to grow and you're willing to invest in yourself so you can pour into others.
Yeah. And let me just speak to that for a second. So, I was there like 10 years ago. I was at that point where like I realized when we got this thing going, I needed a coach. I
Mhm.
need somebody who could coach me. And when I thought about like what was the most important thing that I needed coaching on, it was fundraising. I didn't know. I've never. I mean, I've done some fundraising before, but very, very, very small amounts. And I realized this has got to be something I have to learn how to raise hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. And so that's why I reached out to Mary. It was about 9 years ago, and she coached me. She gave me the tools necessary to be able to effectively fundraise and raise the dollars that we needed for the organization. And as Mary and I like got to know each other through the years, I just had this, itch in my stomach. It was like saying like, okay, now I've been at this for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, seven, eight. There has to be a faster way to do all the things that I did because I knew how to do the fundraising because I got the coaching, but everything else I had to figure out as I went along. I couldn't really find anybody who could guide and teach me and lead me in what I needed to learn. So these were all things that I had to learn as I went. And I thought, man, this should not be this hard and shouldn't take this long. And so that's why we started this coaching program, was to
Yeah.
be a resource so that we could alleviate some of those pressure points that you guys have when you are feeling overwhelmed. And we saw in the comment section, like you just don't know where to begin and like you don't have enough time. And those are all very relevant, very relevant. And so we created this program to help alleviate that so we can free up your guys' time and we can give you adequate resources.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay.
And just so you know why, when we say like starting to, so as many of you guys mentioned in the comment section, you already have your 501(c)(3s too. This it's not just, starting like you don't have the 501(c)(3). You may have have had the organization going for a while, and maybe you hit like a little bit of a plateau, or you just don't know how to take that next level of growth. This is a good program for you.
Yeah. And so we have 5 modules that'll help you walk through the course material. And then from there, we've got um, the templates for you to like how to staff and volunteer job descriptions, support letters, your
Yep.
budget spreadsheet, sample case documents. And then also access to nonprofit experts like Tim and I, who've started and grown 6 and 7-figure nonprofit organizations. And then ultimately, we do a lot of this through our live coaching calls. And Tim and I have really branched this out where it's like we have beginner calls that are twice a month, and then we have advanced calls that are twice a month. So that allows you to sit in on what other people are doing that are a little bit further ahead of you, but yet
Yeah.
you still get your hand held by us. And then we give you access to a private online community for our nonprofit academy students to get feedback, to learn from them, and to grow as in our network. So it gives you that resource. And then we do this in 3 different ways. So some people are like, I just tell me what I need to do and I will just put my head down and go to work. And so one-on-one private coaching is something that both Tim and I do. We can hold your hand, walk through your
Mhm.
organization, and do that. We have a common, like an option that gives you where you can do one-on-one and you can do the group coaching. So you have access to the people in the community and you've got that one-on-one coaching to really take a deep dive into your work. And then we also have the option 3 of just joining in with a group, which I think is really important. So this was actually something that one of our students shared with us just on our most recent call. So just like within the last week. So this was a week from Tuesday. Our student said, Tim and Mary, you are doing such a great job with this group. The visuals are so helpful. I can't wait to get off this call to go to work on what you're teaching us, which was so great because it was like, okay, we want to give you real-time, tangible things that are working in the nonprofit sector, and then
Yeah.
give you the resources to just go take action.
Yeah.
And then this was what one of our, in the same session, this was their first call joining us. And they said, I've learned so much just from this first call. I was having anxiety around how to present my new organization. I feel so much more confident now, which
Yeah.
is great. Back to the confidence. It's like having the confidence to do that. And by the way, we're going to take a few of your questions. So if you do have questions about your nonprofit, we'll be sure
Yeah.
to address those at the end here. We just have a couple more slides to share with you guys. This is Dira. Once again, we interviewed her on our podcast, these next 2 students of ours. But what I love about her testimonial here is that she's like, it's been really cool to know that I'm not the only one who's trying to figure this out. She's like,
Mm.
how many people have friends who are starting up a nonprofit because that's what God told them to do? Like, most people who run a nonprofit do not hang out with other people who also start nonprofits. It's also always like, I'm the only one who's like this, or I might know one person, but I don't really have a full community. And so that's where, she said, it's been so great to listen to other people's stories and have Mary and Tim's templates to go off of. That's huge for me. I don't have time to start from scratch. So to be able to copy and repurpose the resources and make them my own has been invaluable. De'Ara joined our program like right when she was first launching her 501c3. She had just, I believe she had just gotten the status before she
Mhm.
joined into our program. And since then she has gotten multiple facilities donated, like actual
Yeah.
buildings donated to her and
Mhm.
functioning over six figures. So she's already beyond the 75% of all nonprofits within her first year, right? So it's crazy just how surrounding yourself with the right people is so valuable. And then Mark and Adina uh, share with us, Tim, Mark and Adina have just had an incredible journey with us, and they just joined a year ago. Mhm.
Well, yeah. So they joined us a year ago, and I think Adina would confidently say and give me permission to say, like when we first had that initial call with her, she wasn't sure like how far they could take this. There were, uh, she really needed somebody to kind of give her the boost of confidence that they had a really good idea for their nonprofit, and they do. I mean, the stuff that they're doing is incredible. And so she just needed a group of people to come alongside her and her and her husband and give them a boost, the boost that they need. And within 1 year, they told us recently they have quadrupled the size of their organization, quadrupled the size of their organization in both the donations and the growth of their programs. They're doing phenomenal, amazing work.
Yeah. And this was Mark had shared this on Friday mornings at my house when I know Adina is on the Nonprofit Academy call. I'm doing flips because I know how desperate I am to see people be set free and know their purpose. It's overwhelming sometimes the goals and dreams we have. Like we mentioned, all of you guys probably have. When I
Mm.
see that call on the calendar, I know there's this little army of people that are fighting and working to make this thing be better and to help us. There are things happening, iron sharpening iron. There's a plan, a strategy, there's support. So
Yeah.
we love that. And then I just want to go back to this real quick. This slide that we shared earlier about that 75%, being under that 100,000 mark. A lot of times when it comes to raising funds, people ask all their friends to, like, hey, we're just going to tell everybody about this new nonprofit. You got one chance for breaking news. So I just want to let you guys know, like when you see the news pop across the screen, it's like breaking news, this just happened. And all of a sudden, cat's out of the bag, everybody knows about it. So as you launch your nonprofit, it's really easy to just want to be like, we got to tell the world what we're doing. And now all of a sudden, you have just thrown up this information to everybody. And then you sit back and say, well, why isn't anybody giving to it?
Mm.
And now your contacts have run, you've drained the resources, and this is how organizations land in that 55% is because they thought everybody was going to be as excited as they are, and then all of a sudden the organization was kind of dead in the water. And between you and me, like Tim and I want nothing more than to see you guys in these upper levels. And really Tim's organization is sitting in this green zone.
Yeah.
Tim, you have no plans to move beyond the green zone because that is where he is effective in doing
Yeah.
his ministry and doing his
That's right.
nonprofit. So we're not saying everybody should be greater than $10 million as an organization, but we want you guys to be able to do the work that you're called to do, have the funding to actually execute your mission, and also have the strategic plan, have the templates, have the resources, have the community so that
Yeah.
you can do that effectively. So anyways, our ask here today is, well, here, let me share this with you. This was actually one of our students, another one who actually shared on our podcast, but he had shared with us, thank you so much for all you're doing to help my wife and I move forward. I officially resigned and only have 9 days left as an employee. After 13 years, I finally get to run my nonprofit full time. And that's super exciting. But a part of me is like a little bit of my heart breaks because for 13 years, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking he really wanted to run his nonprofit full time 13 years ago, but he just didn't know how.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like, that's where it's like, what we're trying to tell you is that Tim and I know how,
That's
and
right.
that, whenever you are ready, like we want to be a resource for that. So like, if you are in a situation where you're like, I'm ready, I need the support, I need some people to walk with me. We just want to encourage you guys to consider our academy as an option,
That's right.
whether that's this year, whether that's next year, whether it's 5 years from now, this is an option for you. So this is kind of our crazy crew. Here's Steve over here who's on the call. I Tim and I decided to grab our silly picture and not the serious one, but we like to have a good time, and this was us at our live workshop in the fall last year. We do plan to do our next workshop this summer in
Yeah.
St. Louis, and would love for many of you guys to be a part of that if that's, the direction that you guys are leaning on. But so the ask that we have for you is, if you are in a position where you are ready and you're like, I really could use a community, I could use some coaches. We are taking applications. Tim and I this is not a, hey, give us your cash and you're in. Like that,
Yep.
that is not how we function. We have a limited amount of space
That's right.
for our students. We are only accepting 12 students in this session. 12 students, okay? We only have 12 students that we're going to be opening this up to. And we do this application, and then we have a brief 20-minute conversation where we get to actually hear your ideas. We get to
Yep.
hear where you guys are at. Tell us about your nonprofit. Tell us what your dreams are for the future. A lot of people will ask us, how much is this program? What does it cost? There is a cost to it, but we don't want that to be the hindrance right now. We want you to
Yep.
take action. Let's have this conversation, find out if you are ready, if this is the next step you need to take, or maybe it's go listen to the podcast, go have some conversations, go volunteer somewhere, but we can at least give you some guidance on what we hear. So many times, Tim, I know that I hear this where people are like, I don't know if this is a good idea. Like, I know it sounds good to me, but I don't know if this actually will resonate with other
Yeah.
people. And it's just good to have people like Tim and I say, we like what you're doing, but you're not going to make any money. Like, it's
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you right off the bat, like, I don't know who's going to fund this. Or, Tim can say, I don't know why you need to exist when this other
Yeah.
organization already exists.
Most of
And
the time,
so,
what we find is like people like they have an idea for a program, and what we say is like, okay, that's a good piece of the puzzle. We're going to help you think bigger and
yeah.
broader and how to maximize that so that you can pitch that to volunteers and donors and supporters and stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Jen asked here about, what's the recommended time investment for being fully engaged in the program. And so these calls are 90 minutes. And they happen every 2 weeks, so twice a month. So right there, we ask you to allot, those 3 hours a month towards being on those coaching calls. And then we have had students who have just said, you know what, we've had to shut down some of the things that we were doing because it didn't align with what we were trying to do here. So wanting to shut down maybe some other voices or other programs that they might have been a part of. So that may be something, Jen, you might want to consider is like, okay, what am I actively engaged in right now? And can I carve out some extra time to do this? But to be honest with you, Tim and I are not going to push you faster than you are ready to go.
That's right.
So
Every
we have,
every one of our students is at a different pace. They're all and we treat them as such. It's not like you're going to come into this group and everybody has to keep moving at the same speed. All 12 people that we're looking for this will be operating at a different speed, and we're very cognizant of that, and
yeah.
it has to be that way.
Yeah, our last session that we launched in the fall, we have students who do not have their 501c3. We have some that have applied during these last few months and have received it, haven't, they're still waiting on it. They're putting together their bank accounts. but we are all working together just in the information side of things, and then answering the questions.
Yeah.
So all those things that pop up, we're like, where do I put this? How do I get that board member? How do I get that volunteer? Like there's just a lot of moving pieces in the
Yeah.
nonprofit sector. A lot of people don't realize, like, if you do move from business, I think a lot of you guys actually, because I know quite a few that are on this call, you guys have kind of functioned in the nonprofit sector already. So you understand how it works. For somebody who's coming from a business sector into the nonprofit sector, sometimes they have difficulty with the volunteer side of things. And like, how do I compensate people? How do I pay them? How does, so we actually have the tools and resources to help you
That's right.
navigate that. So I think Tim, on our first few calls with our last session, with our last group that started, a lot of times you just tell them, don't worry about that. Like it's just like Tim just keeps on saying, don't worry about that. Like, cause
Yeah.
it's easy to just, oh my gosh, I am supposed to do this, 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 and this. And it's like, Tim's just like, shoot, no, just
Yep.
silence all those voices. And I'm going to tell you, don't worry
Yeah.
about that. This
Yeah.
is where you should be putting your attention right now. And I was doing a one-on-one call the other day, and they were just like, our website, and we're going to, to the international country that they serve in, and we need to get pictures and we need to do this. And I was like, no, you don't. Your website is working. Like
Yeah.
it is fine. Like if you do go, great, get pictures. But I'm telling you, I got to make sure that people are giving you cash.
That's
And so
right.
the website is like, that's down the line. They're going to the website after you've already done the other things. So we're just going to make sure that you have all the information to move through the process. So
Yeah, I remember years ago when I was onboarding people, the first person I onboarded was Lily Blake, and she's my A1. She's still involved in the organization to this day. In fact, she's really a co-founder now. But she has a very operational kind of mind, and one day we're like probably like 6 months into the organization, and she said, Tim, we got to start thinking, as you know, we're going to take this to have like a staff of like 25 people, so we got to start creating HR manuals right now, and like human resources stuff. And I'm just thinking, human resources? Like, you and I aren't even getting paid to do this yet. We don't need to be thinking about HR yet. We need to be thinking about like human resource, like us, the two. Like, how are we going to start collecting a paycheck? I'm not thinking
absolutely.
about I'm not thinking about like employee like issues yet. I'm thinking about putting food on my table, you know?
Sure.
So so yeah, there are early on there are so many things that like come at you left and right, and you just have to learn how to calm the noise and say like, okay, what's the most important thing that I need to do today that I
Yeah.
can handle today? Yeah.
And something that I think a lot of organizations struggle with at the beginning is who to compensate. And I'm just going to flat out say that if you see yourself doing this full time as a profession, as a job, Tim and I are firm believers that you should be compensated, like that you are an
Go.
employee. Yes, get you some cash, pay your bills. And so, like, sustainability of the organization has to start with you.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you are distracted by where the next dollar is coming from, it's really hard to make greater impact and to multiply. So getting
Yeah.
that initial funding going, getting the dollars in the bank, and then allowing you to take a salary so that you
Yeah.
can focus on the job full time is really
So that
something
you
that we're
can
working
breathe.
towards.
Yeah,
Yes.
you can take a breath, and that's one less thing that you have to worry about like on your personal like family side is how you're going to take care of your family. It's going to free you up. And so um I'm often shocked at how people ask that question so often. Is it okay to pay myself? Is it or and once they wrestle that, is it okay to pay myself first? Is it okay for the majority of the funds to early on to go into my salary? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. Because if you're taken care of, then you can take care of other people.
Amen. Amen. Hey, Aaron, would you mind posting that link for the application in the chat as well? I mean, you guys can type it in, startandgrowyournonprofit.com, and there's an apply button right on the main page. But These are like, I think we have 10 questions maybe in the application. Thank you so much, girl. You know, to have those questions just so that we have an idea of your organization. And after we get your application, Aaron will get you set up to get a call with us. And that way we can continue the conversation. So I just really encourage you guys to at least apply and start moving the process forward. If you guys
Absolutely.
have any questions here before we wrap, we can take a few questions. Otherwise, we will let you guys go. It is a Friday, and you're probably already thinking about, you know, all your great plans you have this weekend. So,
I'm
um,
thinking about snow that I have to shovel out of my driveway.
and I'm thinking
I don't
about
think that
going
you
to,
have that problem.
no, I think I'm thinking about, oh, am I going to the pool with my daughter? So,
Great, great, Mary.
I know, I'm sorry. Yeah, the difference between St. Louis, Missouri and Tulum, Mexico. But for wherever
Yeah.
you guys are at, we just thank you guys for carving out this time uh, to come together. If you can't tell from the chat, you guys are all very like-minded people, and that you just want to help people. You want to make a difference in the world. And so I just, you know, continue to pray that that spirit will continue to grow in you, and just like your passion and the fire in you to serve the people that you've been called to serve. And if Tim and I can walk alongside you in that, we would be honored. Tim and I are, I keep saying, I'm speaking on your behalf, Tim, but I know you too well to know that it's like, we just want to be a resource to you guys.
That's right.
And
Mary, Ed asked
yeah.
if they're already in fully funded academy, would you recommend Start and Grow?
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few students that are in both. We have several that are in Start and Grow Your Nonprofit Academy, and they're in Fully Funded Academy. So I recommend both. Ed, it all just depends on what you guys are trying to accomplish. Fully Funded is for missionaries raising their own personal budget underneath the umbrella of another organization. Start and Grow was established because you're running a 501c3. You are the one reporting to the IRS. You are the one that's recruiting the staff and the volunteers and managing the paperwork and all the detail, the receipting and the things that come with a nonprofit. That's why this academy exists, is because it's very different than the missionary side of things. So
There's a
yeah.
little bit more like direct like interaction. Is that fair to say, Maria? So we do it a little bit more one-on-one, a little bit more like it's a smaller community
Yeah.
because because we're talking about building organizations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to give you guys an idea, I mean, Tim and I, our vision for 2025, like when we sat down, Aaron, who's on our team as well, when we sat down and we were making plans for this year, like we were saying, we want to serve 36 students
Yeah.
inside of Start and Grow Your Nonprofit, inside of the academy. And over on the fully funded side, we've got hundreds.
Yeah.
So that just gives you a gauge that these are more like mastermind groups
Much more
where,
intimate. Yeah.
yeah, much more intimate. And we are diving much deeper into each of your organizations. So anyways, all that to be said is, Ed, fill out the application. Let's have a call.
Yep.
So that's probably the best way. Yep. So yeah. So, okay. So Ed, answering that, Joy needs to be in fully
Perfect.
funded. Ed, you need to be in Start and Grow. So on that
Yeah.
note, we will see you all on the other side. Be sure to apply if you're interested. And if not, we will see you whenever the next webinar is, next training. Okay. We'll see you guys.